The following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Yeah! Go Cowboys!
This is Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw Dating, preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys, and broadcasting live from Dallas Cowboys World Headquarters at the Star. Now, your hosts, Christy Scales, Aisha Morrison, Nicole Hutchison, and Jess Navarez.
Well, good Leap Day morning, everybody. Welcome to Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw, the preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys. We are live here at the beautiful SWBC podcast studios here at the Star in Frisco. Joined here by Christy Scales, Aisha Morrison, Jazzy Jazz in the back. I'm your host for the day, Jess Navarez. Our Nicole is out at the NFL Combine, which we have plenty to talk about when it comes in terms to the Combine. So, before we get there, ladies, how are you? Another week has passed by. How are you doing this Leap Day?
We only get to do this once every 4 years for Leap Day, so we got to make it count.
We do.
Yeah.
We have to make it count.
There's like some good deals and stuff that you can get at certain places today, so take advantage of that. I was watching the Today Show earlier to see what those deals were, so we'll talk about it at the commercial break.
And it's Combine. It's the Combine, y'all. And we're going to start seeing players actually do workouts and stuff today. It's so excited. It just came up on TV. And
I know, she's watching it
So
right now.
which of the workouts over the next, through the weekend are you most looking forward to?
Number one, I think one of the favorite workouts I have is where I forgot the name of it, but when the corners backpedal and they have to change direction and they have to flip their hips really quickly. Yeah. I'm fascinated by it because of someone that has sustained a hip injury. The elasticity that you have to maintain, the way you have to be able it looks easy sometimes when you see it, but to flip your hips as quickly as corners do and DBs do, it's not normal. It's not normal.
That's so interesting. You pick that particular drill not because of your injury, but I remember one of my first years covering the Cowboys and was out at Valley Ranch in Irving, and it was one of the off-season mini camps. Back then, you had multiple mini camps during the off-season. But Albert Lewis is this great cornerback, multi-time Pro Bowler for the Kansas City Chiefs, and he was visiting, and so we were kind of standing in the end zone watching these rookies out there. I think it had to be rookie camp, and he was just observing, and he was standing with the media, and he said, "Watch this guy, watch the hips. Now watch this guy. Now watch this guy." As they were just doing the fundamental drills, he says, "This guy's got it, and this guy doesn't." And it's like, and then once he told me what to look for, it's like, oh my gosh.
It gets exciting.
Yes. It's like I'd never thought of it that way before. And just like you're saying, Aisha, once you kind of know what to look for, and now every time, and now you hear the scouts with their words and stuff. And anyway, I just remember that as a prescient thing, and just having this Pro Bowler tell me this, and it's like, oh my gosh, it all came together.
See, and this is why Combine Week is so important, because you get to see who has it, who doesn't, who could be a good fit. We talked about this last week, but now that it's here, it's here. So yesterday, on Wednesday, they saw defensive tackles, linebackers. Today, they'll look at defensive backs, tight ends. Tomorrow, on Friday, they'll look at quarterbacks and running backs. And then on Saturday, it's O-line time, baby. So Nick Harris and Nicole are there on the ground, and so we're kind of seeing some live tweets and updates. So if anything pops up, we'll mention it on here, but we're really going to go over what we saw yesterday a little bit. The Combine also a time to talk to head coaches, front office staff. In the Cowboys case, Mike McCarthy did not attend. Mike Zimmer did not attend. They're staying back here to kind of get things going with Zimmer's new hire and all of that. However, we did hear from Stephen Jones, ladies. I want to start with that, and then we'll get into the rest of the Combine. Aisha has some notes for some of the gentlemen that they talked to yesterday. But let's start with some Stephen Jones notes, because I listened to the full 25-minute interview. There was a lot to take out of it. So I figured there was a lot of discussion for us to have, which when we get into the slow period of time, it's exciting that we have so much to talk about. All right. let's start with, I think, one of the most pressing conversations right now, which is Dak Prescott's potential contract extension or not. We don't know what the state of that is. Stephen was very adamant that he didn't want to make contact or make any kind of comment on the contract status. He wanted to be respectful of any negotiations. And then he was asked if they really want to extend Dak Prescott. He said, oh, yes, absolutely. However, Michael Gelkin came out with a fantastic article. I don't know if you all have read it, with the Dallas Morning News. And if you haven't and you're listening, please go read it. Michael's a fantastic journalist, always does very great work. There was some speculation in there that perhaps there's a multiverse, and this is the multiverse, that they don't extend Dak. And he could also be on a one-year deal because guess who else is? All of the new hires as far as coaches this year as well.
That's very unusual.
Yes.
For someone like Zimmer to sign a one-year deal.
Right. And Mike McCarthy on the final year of his contract. So it seems like there's a lot of ones going around here. Dak Prescott's not exempt from that being a possibility either. So I wanted to open up that discussion here for you ladies. How do you kind of see this going? Where do you see this going? Obviously, it's a possibility, but we were talking about the cap room that kind of contract would take. I mean, if you're the front office and you've seen kind of what Dak has been doing the last 8 years at this point in his career, the lack of playoff success, is that a possibility for you to keep him on a one-year deal, essentially, at this point?
Here's the thing. Dak holds the cards, and Dak has bet on himself before. And it has paid off more than handsomely. So to assume that a multi-year extension is going to get done with a huge bonus that they can prorate out, for most players, I would say that would happen. But in my opinion, it's not a given with Dak. And the other thing is, to me, the biggest thing in this past week is the explosive increase in the salary cap. And so when each team has an additional $30 million to play with, and we'll talk about some of those numbers a little later, it gives you more padding for this year that you could take a bigger cap hit.
How do you feel about it?
Man,
I can see your face.
It's just a weird place to be in. You just don't hear that often that a quarterback that was in the MVP conversation, top 10, those type of things, would be on a one-year deal. We look across the NFL right now, and quarterback is important out there in the streets. Not only quarterback, backup quarterback, too. We're not going to go there. So I just think it's dicey. This is...
Yeah. Dicey's a great word. You're playing with fire.
Yeah, because this is a big year for some of these coaches that are coming in. To your point, it doesn't sound normal for something like this to happen. Maybe we'll get more explanations and stuff like that, but it's concerning a bit because his extension could possibly open up, we've talked about it, could open up their finances a little bit more, despite the fact that they did raise the cap. It's still, free agency is somewhere they need to really attack. They do. They need to be aggressive this year. And so to me, I think it's very taboo, and I just don't like the way that this feels, if I'm being honest. And because your foundation is shaky right now, boss. And I think players can feel that, because it's not just about the quarterback and the coaches. The rest of the players are affected by this as well, because not only are they going to learn different schemes, have to adjust to different coaches, specifically on the defensive side of the ball, to do all of that and to maybe know, and I get it, people say it's the business, these are humans.
Right.
This is like your boss being like, hey, I'm going to be here for another year. Yeah. I don't know after that, but I'm going to teach you how to do this job, how I would do it. Right. No guarantee that you can develop it, though.
And you have to draft to players to suit the... Now, of course, yes, coaches adapt to what the players have, but still, you're going for a certain prototype, right? So
I also wonder, I guess, if draft capital kind of comes in play in this, because this is kind of what you saw with both the Gilmore and Cooks trade last year. If that comes into play at some point, not so much money when it comes to really diving deep and going all in come free agency. And that's really why it's not a concern that, one, the cap space is increased now, and two, it's not so much of a cap casualty for Dak's contract. And especially, I guess, as a way of having a repercussion for the embarrassing loss. I mean, it doesn't all fall on Dak. We talked about it. I don't think it was all Dak Prescott's fault, especially with the season he had, to be able to get the Cowboys in that position. Had he not played like that, the Cowboys would not have been the number 2 seed in the NFC, period.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it kind of just seems like his success is being measured by playoffs and playoff success, which has not been there.
Yeah.
And when there's such an embarrassing loss, somebody has to take the hit. And I think that's Mike McCarthy not getting an extension himself. I think that's Dak Prescott potentially having just one more year on his deal. Somebody has to take the fall for it. And you don't just get out skin-free.
And people not being sad that Dan Quinn is gone, which is very unfair for Dan for what he did in his time here. He was a fall guy for the defense, which has been so good under him, but played poorly and gave up too many explosive plays. But here's the thing. All you Dak haters,
talk to him, Christy. Tell him.
Be careful what you ask for. Be
scary.
careful
That's what I'm
what
saying.
you ask for.
Because I'm looking at some of these quarterbacks, even in this draft. Honey, like, having a good quarterback in this league right now, even despite what happened in the playoffs, and I'm gonna get there, is valuable now. Like, I don't understand why so many people think it's easy to quickly move on.
Yeah, because they have short memories. They don't remember the quarterback wilderness we were in after Troy, and they draft Quincy, and then he flames out and is let go. And, you've got the Drew Hensons and Chad Hutchinsons of the world. And trust me, it was not a good time.
Yeah.
Also, lightning, I guess, kind of can strike twice in the same place when it did with Tony Romo and Dak Prescott.
The Cowboys lucked into
Those two were not supposed to be starting quarterbacks in the NFL.
Exactly.
You're not going to have that happen again. And if you do, I want to know what magic this franchise has to find these quarterbacks. Yeah. Dak Prescott, in the Tony Romo era, fell into their lap of, thank God they had a good quarterback that was ready to take that starting position, because then what would have happened?
Lord have mercy.
What would have happened? Who would have been the starting quarterback?
Oh, it was supposed to be Kellen.
Yeah, Kellen got his ankle broke. So
it was
right, but he got hurt.
Yeah.
And then Dak was not ever supposed to get that opportunity behind Kellen. Yeah. And so my thing is, be careful what you wish for. And everybody, let's get into this conversation, because everybody kind of goes back to Trey Lance being here now, having a year under his belt to work and kind of learn the language and the scheme, the playbook here in Dallas. What did you guys see from Trey? Because there was a lot of speculation last year with the quick trade and how quick Jerry was to kind of grab him from San Francisco, that could be, I guess, the quarterback in training at some point. And yes, we do have to kind of discuss that Dak is getting older. He's getting to that point in his career where maybe it is time to start thinking ahead of the future. But that doesn't mean your immediate future. Both things can be true, where you have your franchise quarterback and you start thinking ahead for who takes his spot when his time is done here in the next however many years that he has left. Both things can both be true, but what did you guys see out of Trey Lance this season, where we did get to see some of him at practice or whispers around the building, whatever have you? I just don't understand why people think immediately that he would be the answer, considering, what we saw at practice, and that's no shade to him.
Yeah. No, I'll tell you what I saw of Trey Lance, and that was only when he would come out in pregame warm-ups with Scott Tolzien, the quarterback's coach, and then some of the either practice squad or inactive wide receivers, and would throw to them and have a session early in pregame, okay? And then I know that he did a lot more scout team work than most third-team quarterbacks get. The way it works in the NFL is the starter gets the vast majority of snaps, in practice. A backup quarterback, if he gets 10 snaps in a week in his own team's offense, that's a lot, because the backup, number 2 backup, runs the scout team. So Cooper Rush runs, in previous years, like all of scout team work, or the vast majority. Trey Lance got quite a bit of scout team work, not ahead of Cooper Rush, but along with Cooper Rush.
Right.
So he did get more work than most third teamers in terms of practice, the team portion, and not just like after practice when the veterans have gone inside.
And I will say, too, asking around the locker room, it still seemed that Cooper Rush was still getting those second snaps.
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh,
it
yeah.
was never Trey Lance getting those snaps ahead of Cooper.
Right, yeah, for the backup stuff, it's Cooper. But in terms of scout team,
right.
Trey got a bit. But, yeah, Trey Lance did not jump Cooper Rush this past year.
Exactly.
You know, with Dak, if something happened with Dak, it was going to be Cooper.
Right.
If you're betting on your success from even from some of the injuries he's dealt with and things like that, it's not my business. Like, I mean, it is our business, but it's not my business. Like, I don't know what is going on. You want to help your quarterback. Like, I do think it's important to address the run game.
Yes.
Because in not addressing the run game, like, the lack of run game efficiency was very evident this year. Other teams know that, man. I'm sorry. Like, you can see it on film plenty of times that, they like, oh, they lining up in 21 personnel. We don't care. We know they can't run the ball successfully right now. It puts a lot of pressure on your quarterback. And that's what happened in the playoff game. Also, too, not only could you not stop the run, you couldn't run. So even
because you were so far behind, you had to pass.
Absolutely. But even when that game wasn't super out of hand, they were down 2 scores.
True.
They had time. You could have ran the ball and found some I don't know, some physicality and some momentum with the run game, and it just was never there. And that's been a problem in quite a few of these games. And even when I think back to San Fran the year before, it was like, listen, hear me out. I understand Tony Pollard got injured. That shouldn't shut down your whole running game operation.
Yep.
It's been a problem for a while, and it manifests in these playoff games as well. But we saw it midway, almost halfway through the season, and it was a problem all season. Help your quarterback out. If we're going to evaluate him, we need to evaluate him in totality because, hey, listen, even that big dog up in KC, Pacheco breaking some of those big runs in the Super Bowl helped him out and kept that defense honest.
Yep.
So, listen, I'm off my soapbox, but I'm definitely at a point where I'm like, y'all keep playing with fire. It's going to be real. It's going to be tumbleweeds and Curse the cowardly dog looking out here.
Not the tumbleweeds.
It's going to be sad every day.
Well, before we go to our next break, I want to get to some other points that that Steven had, because there was also some reports that came out, speaking of the run game, that it's likely that both Tony Pollard and Rico Dowdle are about to hit the market for free agency. So regardless, it kind of just seems like the running back room will look very, very different this offseason. So just want to say that. A couple other keynotes that we heard from Steven. He was asked about Leighton Vander Esch and kind of that whole situation. He said he wants to let Leighton speak on his decision going forward, and that decision obviously being whether he continues to play in the NFL or not. So we don't know officially anything on that, but I thought that was an interesting way for Steven to answer that question. He was asked about DeMarvion Overshown and Trayvon Diggs, their recovery process. He said it's probably more realistic you see them participating in training camp rather than OTAs. He said, quote, they're coming along great. That's positive news.
How far?
That's positive news.
How far has ACL come?
It's amazing.
Yep.
ACL,
Yep.
I remember being, it was when I was a kid.
Yep.
You heard ACL, immediately, his career's over.
Yes.
And it's just remarkable to see them, even to see like them walking on the sidelines and stuff as quickly as they were. I was like,
we see them here sometimes.
I'm like,
yeah,
what's going on here.
Yeah.
Like, so sorry. I was just going to say
it's
fantastic that's.
It is, and he talked about how early it happened. Both injuries happened to where they'll have the time to come back realistically and participate in more team drills come training camp,
That's
which
awesome.
is great to hear, considering you've seen the kind of impact it can have on a player to not have training camp time.
Yes.
So there's that. He talked about a couple more free agents. Stephon Gilmore. I thought this response was interesting. He said they will be discussing things and how the overall picture looks to who they'll bring back. He said, quote, "We were very pleased with what he did for this team and have nothing but respect for him." Sounds okay, but let's compare it to what he said about Tyron Smith. He said he talked about how he gave Mike McCarthy a lot of credit for how Mike was scheduling out Tyron's practice schedule and the veteran rest days, all of that. He said, "We'll certainly be sitting down with him and looking at what it looks like for him to stay here." Two very different responses if you're comparing what he said about Stephon and Tyron. So that was interesting. Keeping it on the O-line, he talked about keeping Tyler Smith at left guard. This was a fun one. He said, "Remains to be seen. Starting to feel a lot like Larry Allen all over again. His versatility brings options to the team." Essentially, we can get into that after the break. Couple more things I want to get into as well. He was asked about the culture. There's a culture problem with this team. He said he doesn't worry about the culture. They all feel good about it, but they always want to be better, especially if they're not winning the Super Bowl. On the other end of the break, we'll have a soundbite about this, but he also talked about Jerry's all-in comment. So let's go ahead and take that break. We'll hear that soundbite from Steven. We'll get into that discussion. Aisha has some notes on some of the guys that the Cowboys talked to, whether it be a formal or informal interview yesterday. We're going to talk about the salary cap increase. We have a lot more, guys. If you have any questions, make sure to tweet us as well. Stay with us. This is Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw, and we will be right back.
We know that juicy, cheesy, grilled to perfection burger sounds amazing, but it does sound like something is missing. Pepsi, baby! The yin to this burger's yang. Burgers and Pepsi go together like burgers and Pepsi. This perfect blending of flavors makes every bite of lettuce, every sesame seed on the bun, and every sip of that crisp, refreshing, ice-cold cola a journey to Foodtopia. Burgers, better with Pepsi. That's what I like.
At Jigsaw Dating, we obviously want the Cowboys to bring that sixth ring home. But to be honest, we're more focused on finding the person who will put a ring on your finger. That's why we created a dating app that reveals your face through meaningful conversation, so you can date deeper. Because it's personality that matters the most, not looks. Join Jigsaw Dating today, dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
Nationals League finals are coming to AT&T Stadium. Don't miss your chance to watch North America's best soccer teams battle it out in the semifinals on March 21st. Then see who lifts the trophy in the championships on March 24th. Tickets are available now at SeatGeek.com, the official ticketing partner of AT&T Stadium. Sounds fun. Welcome back to Girls Talk, Boys Talk, everybody. Christy Scales, Aisha Morrison, Jess Mars, our Jazzy Jazz out in the back, being our fantastic, fabulous producer that she is. All right, let's continue our Combine conversation. Ahead of the break, we talked about Steven commenting on Jerry's all-in comments. Jazzy, do we have that soundbite?
Yes.
Okay, let's play that soundbite, and then let's open up for discussion.
I've never known Jerry not to be all in any given year, but certainly, we've got a great team put together. I think, the last 3 years, won a lot of football games, I think 36. And, certainly where we have to improve is the postseason. We're going to get the right kind of guys who step up and make big plays in the postseason. And it's been a challenge in terms of our success there, and that's where we have to improve.
All right. My question to you ladies is, when we heard Jerry talking about going all in, was that really anything new?
No. What else is he supposed to say?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not a surprise at all.
Right.
And, but our definition of all in and the Jones definition of all in may be a little bit different. I think most people, when you hear all in, casual fans or ones that don't pay super close attention are going to think they're going to throw all that money in at free agency. And while the cap has increased markedly, 13% this season, over $30 million, well, you have big contracts and a quarterback that counts over $59 million against it. So even if they wanted to throw a bunch of money in free agency at linebacker or running back or offensive line or some of these areas that fans are concerned about, that we're all concerned about, it's not feasible that you can hit all of those areas, I don't think. And I think that it's going to be more tactical in going with more mid-priced free agents. And the other thing is, you have people like Dan Quinn leaving, and they're going to poach some of these free agents away.
Absolutely.
It's going to be harder to re-sign. You don't think Dan Quinn would like to have Stephon Gilmore
Especially
up
with
in
that
Washington
young secondary.
with the first round pick that they had as a rookie, that cornerback? He would be a great mentor to him. So there are a lot of moving parts in this.
Yeah. For me, as far as the culture questions and some of those things, I don't know. I wish that they could see some of the other side of things, how we look at things at times, because I do think that there's some clear-cut issues with the weight and the heaviness and all the media and so much. Like, I do think that is starting to affect this team, and the weight of having to be the team that pulls, the Cowboys as an organization out of this slump of not having a championship. I believe it is starting to weigh on some of these players, and I think until you acknowledge that, it's going to be a problem, because I do think in order to the type of coach, like the type of voices that you have to have in a room like this is unique to me. I don't believe that you can coach this team how you coach any other team in the NFL.
Well, Mike
think you can
McCarthy
handle
said
them the
that at the start of the playoffs, and one of the things he talked about in one of the press conferences, it was a similar question, how do you handle that? And
Right.
he said, I've told the team that they're not responsible for the things that came before them in terms of, at that, 28 years of not having a Super Bowl or a return to the NFC Championship game. So, but we talked about it here on this podcast. They may not be responsible, but they do feel the weight of it. Maybe not when they first come in the first couple of years, but
after a while.
Yeah.
It gets taxing to hear it over and over.
You know how I know it's taxing to them?
because it's taxing
to
on you.
us.
Yeah.
It's
taxing
aggravating
to
to hear it for us.
It's
I can't
taxing
imagine
on
how it
us.
feels for them.
Well,
I mean,
I've been here for all
especially
of
the
them
folks
since
like
then. Yeah.
we
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Christy's fed
I
up
know.
over here.
But
Christy wants a Super Bowl parade, people.
even in regard to the Stephon Gilmore and some of those guys, when you think about it, it goes back to the coaching thing as well. Is like a Stephon Gilmore who's a little later in age. I don't know if from what he showed this past year, maybe he wants a 2-year deal. Maybe he wants something longer, because this might be
Right.
him hanging. I mean, he's 33.
Yeah.
And it was remarkable to see him play this year, but maybe he does want something with a tad bit of longevity, because he understands what's next for him. So
Right.
I just this is truly, y'all, this is a odd place to be in. It feels I feel very uneasy about what is happening right now and how it could is it possible for them to go out and draft, go out in free agency, and things kind of, but this doesn't feel together right now. There doesn't feel, and again, the guys might be close in the locker room and everything,
Yeah.
fine. But I'm talking about marrying the upstairs folks to these folks. It just feels weird right now, and I don't like the energy. What about y'all?
It feels very make or break instead of all in. That's kind of how I would say. Is this
interesting,
feels
yeah.
very
Because of the
make or
1
break.
year, because of the 1 year status of the staff.
Right, and I think that's why it
Coaching
feels
staff.
uneasy, is because you haven't had a circumstance like this from recent history that I can remember, where you had so many people on a 1 year deal. That's a make or break. That's a prove it season. That's not necessarily that's hard to maneuver because there's little room for error with those kind of contracts. And that goes for anybody. That goes for your head coach. That goes for your DC. I mean, and say they get to the playoffs again next season. Same thing happens. And then what? You're talking at that point, say they don't decide to extend Dak Prescott, then what? You have to find a new head coach, a new DC,
total rebuild,
a new... pretty much every coaching staff, on the defensive side, a new franchise quarterback.
Yeah,
I don't even want to think about that. I'm just saying that's why I feel uneasy. You said it perfectly. Uneasy. It's just I don't like this.
Yeah. Now I think with Dak I think the more obvious option is doing those 2 voidable years, right? Because sure you would have to pay more, if it could cost you against the cap in those couple of years, but it would lessen the cap this year because if it's all in what everybody wants, all in. I don't want to go back to that phrase. But if it's make or break, because it's a 1-year deal, you have to put all your chips in on the table, right? And so you don't want to be playing with a short hand, right? Yeah. And I don't know. You need, and the point of that is, if you've got 1 year, then you want them to go out in free agency and bring you all the talent that they can.
Right.
Because if it's your last year, I need to go out the way I want to go out with the players I want, and not be, saving money for the future.
Absolutely. While we put a little bow on that conversation, I still want to go through some of the guys that the Cowboys had some formal and informal interviews with at the Combine. Shout out to Nick and Nicole for this beautiful list that just made life so much easier for us. Aisha, I sent you this list. If you guys want to look at it, I'm not going to read it all. Nick Harris tweeted it yesterday. If you want to go through and look, I'm sure they'll keep doing that. But Aisha, you saw that list. Who are some of the guys that stood out to you that the Cowboys talk to while they're there, whether it be a formal, informal interview? Who were some of the guys that stood out to you in that?
Well, first of all, let me say that this is my favorite time because it's very humbling. Because you look at the list of some of the guys they talk to, I ain't watched them. I didn't even know their names, and that it kind of lets you know, like, oh yeah, these people do this for a living. We just get on the mic and talk, but they're sifting through these teams that maybe you don't even think about, and some of these players' names came up. One that stood out to me, and Trice Knight, linebacker, UTEP. He's 6'2", 235. Again, I actually wrote down, this is stuff that makes me excited because he even said yesterday in his interview, he was like, the best advice that he's gotten is, stay at the school that you're at. Like, it's a lot of guys transferring and trying to look for that. And he just was like, the tape is there. People will find you. Yeah. And to me, I think that him even having, any level of an interview with the Cowboys kind of shows that people are still going to find your tape. I looked at him. He's a 6-year player. So he's a little long in the tooth. He can play some football. But at this point, I don't dislike that a whole bunch with linebacker because I do think some of these guys that have played longer, they've seen more. It slows down for them, some of them. So anyway, I'll tell you about the player a little bit. He plays with his eyes a lot. So he's constantly, and I think it is a gift and a curse a little bit with him because he'll see it. And there's times where I just want him to go drive and get it. However, he is a little feisty. Got a little chip on his shoulder playing down there in El Paso. He's bursty as a blitzer. He has sideline-to-sideline speed. And his reaction time is pretty good. I like some of the things I saw from him in coverage from a zone perspective. He has the ability to do it. He can take undisciplined angles at times, but, listen, that's something to improve upon from a linebacker. And then also, too, like I said, he also plays with his hands. And I think he could get stronger when he disengages, but this is a fiery player. He has fluid body movement, a lot of body control. He has ability. And when you see him, it's funny, too, because it's like when you go to the gym. I don't know if you ever went hooping, but if you go to the gym, you can immediately look and be like, oh, that guy played overseas or something. He looks just he pops out a little bit more than everybody else on the field. And he's a solid player, and he's very solid. He's a run stopper. He's above average as a run stopper, as a linebacker, which is good to hear. He stood out to me. I just was like, oh, they're looking at somebody at UTEP, number one, for my girl here. But then number two, it's just so unique to me that it's just a guy that I never saw coming. And he still can play the game.
I feel obligated to say go Aggies because that's pretty much, other than the Lobos, your next rival, the UTEP Miners, as a New Mexico State alum. So go Aggies on that note. But also so cool because UTEP is a school that growing up in that area, there's not a lot of guys that actually make it. That's why it was such a big deal for Aaron Jones to make it. And he is so highly praised in El Paso because, again, when you grow up in an area like El Paso, Las Cruces, even Albuquerque, in that area, it's just so rare and in between that you find a talent that can make it to the NFL and that can stay there and maintain it. So I love hearing that. It hits the heartstrings.
Yeah. Well, and you love Aaron Jones, but not when he scores all the touchdowns against the Cowboys.
Look,
Packers
any
running
other
back.
time I root for Aaron Jones, you know this.
Well, Babe Laufenberg from Cowboys Radio, our colleague, his late son Luke was at UTEP. He knows Aaron Jones very well and speaks so highly of Aaron. But we'll have to get with Babe because Babe goes to so many UTEP minor games now and see what he thinks.
Yeah, I'm sure
Babe would have really good insight on that.
I'm actually going to reach out there. Thank you for that.
He really will. Anybody else on that list that stood out?
I got one more.
Let us have it.
Let me tell you. This gentleman has a story, and it's really his chance to write that. I believe his name is Iyabi Oki, and he's a DN. He played in Charlotte. That's where he is. That's where he's being drafted out of. However, before he was at Charlotte, he spent some time at Michigan. Before he was at Michigan, he spent some time at Tennessee. I think it's I'm sorry, Tennessee. It's not Tennessee Tech. I can't.
Tennessee Martin or Tennessee
Martin.
Chattanooga.
Yes, Tennessee Martin. I can't remember her right, baby. Before that, he spent some time at Houston. Before that, he started and was drafted to Alabama. This gentleman played football late. He didn't start playing into his junior year of high school.
Oh, wow.
He's had some behavioral things and some issues that have taken him off the field. But in the last 2 years, he's really focused his life back to Christ. He's really kind of buckled down. And in his interviews I watched yesterday, he was just talking about how improved he's been. And some of the people that are around him that I read some articles about are saying the same things about him as that. And don't get it twisted. When he left Michigan, they were hurt. I searched, and a lot of the fans and a lot of the people there were really looking forward to him. Dog, this guy has a potential to be a real dominant DN in this league. He's 6'3", 253, so he has great size, great weight. He rushes with speed to power. He's edgy. He has a motor. The temperament, again, is something that I think he's improving upon. But if he can figure out how to ride that fence, he's active in the run game. He's not afraid to come downhill. He's edgy. He is very much so like every play, he's 100% almost. And the pursuit is there. The backside pursuit is there. I said holy wild card. Because you look at a guy like this, and this is why scouting excites me. Because there are times that you look at a guy like this and you look at his resume, and a lot of people would be like, I'm not talking to this kid. He clearly doesn't have stability. But at the same time, you look at this, you turn on that tape, you can't ignore it. So if you fish a little bit, you want to see if he's improved. And so anyway, I'm still looking at film on him. It is difficult to find, concrete film from this past year. However, looking at him at Michigan, looking at some of the pass rush ability, the hand fighting, how he gets to the ball, he has a nose for the ball. Y'all, I mean, he stands out. He stands out on film. So I'm just wondering how the interview process is going to go from him, how he's going to test. All that stuff's going to matter. But I'm sure the character stuff is the biggest thing that people are trying to make sure has been improved in the last couple of years. Outside of that, this guy has a lot of upside if he's in the right place.
Well, but those kinds of backgrounds where there are questions about that, if there are, that can make you slide in the draft. but
grab 'em.
make you a steal.
Yep.
If you're the team that decides to invest in him and show some faith.
A lot of potential.
So you
there.
see him as a mid to late now, or more early day 3?
His ability, ability wise, this to me is no later than a 3rd round pick.
Oh, wow.
Maybe late 3rd round
Okay.
pick.
Yeah.
With what's happened with his instability and stuff, again, people are going to worry like, can I fit him into this scheme? Can I fit him into this scheme? Temperament, everything.
Right.
So it's like, okay, I think he could definitely slide to like 5th round and things like that because of the character stuff. But if he tests well,
Yeah,
you
it's
go.
make or break for him this week.
I can't wait.
He could,
Seems like the
he
theme
could
around
talk his
here.
way into a higher pick.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, it's exciting.
I'm
There you
sorry.
go.
I just
No, thanks for
their
thanks
stories
for
are
bringing those,
unique,
too.
and I wanted to.
yeah.
Those are guys I want to highlight. 'Cause
I love that.
So,
I knew
I-
you'd come with the fire.
And I want you for next week pick like 3 or 4 guys that for the whole draft,
Yep.
that you are most excited about.
Okay.
So
Yep.
homework assignment, if that's
Okay, I
okay.
There you go.
do
You
that.
have a Kristen homework
Yeah,
assignment.
homework assignment.
I can do that.
Let's take our next and final break. When we come back, we are going to talk about the salary cap increase and the NFLPA report card for the Dallas Cowboys. Stay tuned. This is Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw. We will be right back.
At Jigsaw Dating, we obviously want the Cowboys to bring that 6th ring home. But to be honest, we're more focused on finding the person who will put a ring on your finger. That's why we created a dating app that reveals your face through meaningful conversation, so you can date deeper. Because it's personality that matters the most, not looks. Join Jigsaw Dating today, dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
You know that sound anywhere. It's the crisp crunch of that first nacho chip. With its perfect cheese to sour cream ratio sitting atop a layer of delicious beans, it's a sip away from perfection. That's what we're looking for. Add a delicious, refreshing Pepsi and we've achieved absolute nacho nirvana. Because while you can pile those nachos high with every spicy, cheesy, savory topping, there's no topping a cool Pepsi finish. Nachos, better with Pepsi. That's what I like.
Enjoy excellent dining, boutique shopping, and exciting events at the Star District in Frisco, featuring dozens of North Texas's best restaurants and shops, plus a calendar full of family-friendly events. There's always something to shop, dine, and do at the Star District. Visit thestardistrict.com for more information. All right, welcome back to Girls Talk, Boys Talk. This is our final and very quick last segment of the show. Christy Scales, Aisha Morrison, Jazzy Jazz in the back is our producer. I'm Jess Navarre, your host today. Our Nicole is out at the Combine, so we miss her, and we love her, but we know she's going to do some good work today. All right. NFL salary cap increase. Christy Scales, what do you have for us on that?
Well, it went from $224.8 million this past 2023 season to up to $255.4 million. Some of the original projections were in the high 230s, and then as the season was going along, and a lot of the gambling and all of that kind of thing, but mainly it's the increase has to do with the new broadcasting rights kicking in from all the different not only networks and cable services but the streaming services. So that 13.6% increase from one year to the next is by far the largest in NFL history. The NFL started with a salary cap in 1994, and so it usually increases about 10, maybe 12 million a year. That's the range. So to go up by 30 million in a year. Now I know that it's everybody gets the same amount. There's a pie. And you take it and you divide it into 32 slices, so everybody gets the same slice of same piece, size of the slice of pie.
What kind of pie?
Ooh, what's your favorite?
Pumpkin.
Oh,
I
okay.
know. I'm going to get a lot of hate.
That's
Okay.
your favorite pie? My favorite pie is chess pie.
Oh, I love chess pie.
I've never
Wow, I'm
had
going
it.
to vote for that.
Can you make me a chess pie?
Nah, I'm just gonna take it to a barbecue spot. We
Love.
get you one.
Even better.
Jess has her own theory.
I have my own theory on that
God,
on that
please.
increase.
She's gonna
Thank your local Swifties for that I'm not. Look, I know you guys think I'm
Kansas
like
City
obsessed.
can fake it.
I think you guys think I'm obsessed, but genuinely, being in the Swiftie community, I have never seen, and I'm an OG Swiftie. Like, I saw Taylor Swift as an opener for George Strait as my first concert when I was literally in the 5th grade, maybe. I'm not like a new Swiftie in this. This fan base is so invested in football. Like, I'm not kidding when I can tell you, like, the Swifties have studied and learned football to understand what's going on. And yes, they were watching the KC games, obviously, to see Taylor. But people have an interest now in the NFL that never had an interest before. This whole fan base has a new interest. So thank your local Swifties for
A
the
rising tide carries all boats.
The only reason I can concede to some of this is
because you love me.
no, because you said her number's 13 and it's 13%.
Thank you.
And I think
Thank
some
you.
things aren't coincidental.
Look,
and that's all I got.
Let's
That's
talk
all I
about
got.
that.
We gotta go.
The Chiefs win the Super Bowl from the 13-yard line. It's her 13th game. We don't have to get into it. I'm just saying, not a coincidence.
And yet, for all the Chiefs have accomplished, they're like near the bottom of the NFLPA player poll.
Oh, here we go.
I mean, that is wow.
It's crazy. Speaking of that, real quick, we have a couple minutes left. Let's go down the NFLPA report card for the Cowboys. Treatment of families got an A-. That's 4th in the league compared to the other teams. Food cafeteria got a B, that's 11th. Nutritionist/dietitian got a B, also ranking 11th. Locker room got an A, ranking 2nd in the NFL across all teams. Training room got a C-, 26th in the league. Training staff got a D+, 30th in the league. Weight room, A, 5th in the league. Strength coaches got a B+, 17th in the league. Team travel, I think this one's a little interesting too. C-, ranking 22nd in the league. Head coach, A, 9th in the league. Ownership, B, 19th in the league. Of all of that, obviously there's some highs and there's some lows. What sticks out to both of you the most?
And training staff, because Cowboys have an awesome training staff, but it's really based more on the number of trainers and saying that, just they would like to have more. The Cowboys you only have to have 3 trainers by rule of the NFL collective bargaining. The Cowboys have 4, and then 2 assistants, like graduate assistants. And so, but still, when you have 90 players in the off season and through training camp, and when you have, it's not 53 players plus 16 on a practice squad and guys on IR and things like that. There's only so much time in a day. So,
more so what they're
you
saying,
have terrific, Britt Brown, director of rehab, best in the business.
We've seen what
but
he
he
can
can
do.
only be in one place at one time. And
they talk
Jim
highly
and
of Britt.
Hanson and the guys do a wonderful job. But when you play a violent sport and you have so many guys that get dinged up and you have to come in so early for your treatment.
Yep.
So it's not an indictment on the ability of the training staff that we have. It's just it sounds like they would just like to have more access. Well, they have access, but just maybe increase the number of staff.
Yeah, man. I don't have much to add, but did they say that the training equipment was meh?
Yeah, it says, Michael Gilkin tweeted this, the major issue in Dallas based on responses is centered around the training room. The players feel that they're very understaffed in this department. It's difficult to get the necessary preparation and treatment to perform their best. 62% of the players feel like they get an inadequate amount of one-on-one time treatment time, which is what Christy said. The other issue mentioned, players feel the training room lacks basic equipment that you would expect to be standard in any other training facility, which I thought was interesting.
I find it interesting too because where are we?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Right.
Yeah, well, but the one thing about the travel is we had a really brutal travel schedule this year with the overnight games and the late nights
and the
Thursdays, especially the early in the season
and the prime times.
And, oh my gosh! So the Cowboys, you know, they always play the maximum amount of primetime games because they're such a draw for the network. But golly, the way that it was road trips and around the holidays, you know, Christmas Eve and things like that, that it was particularly tough this year, I thought. And so I think that part of that with the travel may be a reflection on so many of the overnight coming back home. And that's not up to the team, you know.
Yeah, that's the schedule.
That's being a victim of your own circumstance and popularity.
Well, there you go. Next week, when we come back here, we'll touch more on all things Combine going on. Some other news that I'm sure will pop up throughout the week as well. We'll be here to discuss it again Thursdays at 10 a.m. Central Time. We are live here. So, ladies, our time has come to an end. We went a little bit long today, but that's okay. Always fun. Christy, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Aisha, thank you for being here. Our Jazzy Jazz in the back, thank you for being the best producer ever. We love you. For all four of us, Jazzy included, thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you guys so much. Have a great rest of your Leap Day. Go celebrate accordingly. We will be back here next week. Thanks for watching. This is Girls Talk, Boys Talk presented by Jigsaw. We'll see you then. Bye.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys?